Novak Djokovic claims his 19th Grand Slam title after beating Stefanos TSITSIPAS in 5 sets, coming from 2 sets to love down to win 6-7, 2-6, 6-3, 6-2, 6-4 in what can only be described as a thrilling final. He becomes the third person to complete a second career Grand Slam. For anyone that doesn't know what that is, that's winning a Grand Slam twice at least. So each Grand Slam at least twice, and he becomes the third person after Rod Laver and Roy Emerson. So really impressive stuff from the Serb. And on top of that, he actually becomes the first player in the Open era to do and achieve that feat. So on top of that, a couple more records and things to touch upon. He becomes the first person to beat Rafa Nadal at Roland Garros and go on to win the title. And he now is only one behind the 20 total that Rafa Nadal and Roger Federer tied on for the total number of Grand Slams. Only one behind them now. Records tumbled, records made, and Novak Djokovic comes out on top in this, what can only be described as master versus the apprentice, I think, really. But Stefanos Tsitsipas, has to be said, put up a very valiant performance. He very well could have just crumbled under the pressure of this final, but the fact that he was 2 sets to love up, I think, is a testament to how good he is mentally at his age at 22 years old. And I think, some people might say he got old man a little bit. And in saying that, it's not to say that Djokovic is an old man. I think it's just the experience definitely shone through for Novak. And he had the wherewithal to adapt his game as the match wore on and managed to figure out the game of Stefanos Tsitsipas and then adjust accordingly. And that's what makes Djokovic such an incredible champion. Now, everyone's going to be putting in the comments and saying Djokovic is the GOAT. And you know what? The more that he does stuff like this, the more the argument strengthens. What I will say, and I've said it from the start, that I'm a Nadal supporter, but if Nadal was on 30 Grand Slams, right, went to say for somehow he got to 30 Grand Slams now, and Novak Djokovic and Federer didn't win any more from here on out, I think there is still a debate and argument to be had that the other two would be the greatest of all time. I think it's what you like, it's a preference, style of play, but one thing that has to be said and has to be pointed out is that Novak Djokovic has a winning record against both. He extended that winning record against Nadal. Nadal had a chance to bring it back, and tie the record against Novak Djokovic, but lost obviously in the semis. A really impressive performance from Novak. And now he had not just has winning records against both, he has the most number of major titles out of all three. And in addition to that, he is now only one away from tying the other two as well in Nadal and Federer. Whereas what we're talking a year and a half, 2 years back, he was 3, 4, 5 Grand Slams away from the top. So he is coming and coming quickly. He seems like the one out of the three that seems to have so much longevity left in his game compared to the other two as well. I think Federer age is a factor. I mean, the fact that he's played until turning 40 this year is a testament to him. But Novak Djokovic is still 34, Nadal 35, but Nadal's got a lot more wear and tear than Novak Djokovic. And Novak Djokovic's game is more adaptable, I think, to last long term as he continues to add to his game. And we'll touch upon that. The serve and forehand, obviously, something that was very prevalent in the in the Australian Open, and also something that he has brought into here. He's added a very good drop shot to that now, something that, well, he got completely destroyed with against Nadal last year in the final, where he tried to utilize it and it didn't work at all. But he's managed to master that and play at the right times. Now, on the flip side, I think it's worth talking about Stefanos Tsitsipas before we get into this match. 22 years of age, and as I said, didn't crumble under the pressure. In addition to that, he has made his country proud. The first ever Greek player to make a Grand Slam final, and he would have become, obviously, the first ever Greek player to win a Grand Slam. I can see him winning multiple slams. These guys are not going to be there forever. And, he was in tears after, and I completely understand that. I mean, it would have been gutting, heart-wrenching to be 2 sets to love up, and then next thing you know, Djokovic just turned it on. He did turn it on, and he came into that third set a renewed man, took a bit of a break off the court, came back, and just looked a new man. and looked rejuvenated after looking a bit flat in that second set. And I think he did definitely have a little bit of a hangover from the Nadal performance. And I did allude to that on the commentary, on the comms that I was doing for the channel. And actually, talking of the comms, thank you everyone for tuning in for the live stream. It was unbelievable to have so many people on. We had unbelievable turnout, was so good. Please do continue to support the channel. Make sure you're liking on the videos, it really does help. And of course, subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. As people will know, I cover 2 other sports as well, in cricket and boxing. So if you're interested in those, of course, check out those videos. But the tennis community here is growing quite substantially. And we do have crossovers as well between communities with people liking 2 or 3 of the sports that I cover. So yeah, really amazing to have the turnout we did. And of course, it turned out to be an absolute cracker. And myself and Venu really enjoyed doing comms on it. So it was really cool. Let's then talk about the match itself, because I've talked a little bit about what it means for both players going forward. Tsitsipas will have to pick himself up, dust himself off. I think he has a game that can transcend to the grass. He just needs to learn to move on the grass. That's the biggest thing, is movement on the grass. His actual game, he can serve and volley. He's good at the net, and he's got a powerful game, and that normally translates quite well onto the grass. So let's see how he does there. Zverev as well, Medvedev. I think all 3 of those guys can do quite well on the grass, but obviously not playing last year will be a hindrance to them. And for Djokovic and maybe even Nadal, I guess, although Nadal doesn't necessarily particularly like the grass as much as he used to. For those guys, especially Djokovic and Federer, it will be an advantage because they've got so much experience on the grass. Missing 1 year won't make a big difference. But for these guys, each year, trying to adapt and mold their game is helpful. So, right. So we've just gone over very briefly what it means for both players going forward now. Novak Djokovic, obviously, a lot of people will think he's a favourite in the next 2 Grand Slams. Could he do it? Could he win all 4 Grand Slams in a calendar year, which would be an incredible feat? Hasn't been done in this Open era. I don't know. Right, let's go through then some of the stats and kind of why they're telling some of them, because for me, there were some very key patterns of play, some very key points and game plans employed by both. And I think it's important to go over. So if we just go over the stats from set 1, I'm not just going to talk about stats, I'm going to talk about the general play as well. So obviously, Tsitsipas taking that one 7-6. Now, in that set, so Tsitsipas came out and he started sharp, but he had to save 2 break points on his first service game and the first game of the match. He saved them and managed to see out his service game with 3 straight aces, really big serving, and that was pretty much a good start to just say to Djokovic, "You're not going to have this easy." Novak Djokovic, though, did manage to break him in the end, and he was serving for the set of 5-3. At this point, I'm just thinking Djokovic is going to take this set, but Tsitsipas looked really dialed in, really turned on in terms of his psyche, and he just stepped up again, broke Djokovic back, and then not just broke him back, but then held serve and took it to a tiebreaker. Now, when you get to a tiebreaker with Novak Djokovic, as a Nadal fan, I was completely pessimistic about Nadal's chances against Djokovic in the tiebreaker in that 3rd set in the semi-final, and rightly so, because Djokovic's tiebreak record is phenomenal, and that definitely shone through in that semi-final. But here, Tsitsipas managed to get off to the best possible start, 4-love up in that tiebreaker, a couple of mistakes from Djokovic, uncharacteristic errors, and also a couple of fantastic points by Tsitsipas. Now, he goes 4-love up, but then Djokovic brings it back, right, to 4-all, I think it was. And then from there, you're thinking, okay, right, well, this is what I knew this was going to happen. But on top of that, Tsitsipas somehow manages to just grind it out and he wins that set. And that was really impressive to me. And he didn't just win it, he won it 8-6 as well. It was a really impressive performance from the Greek player to save face straight away and get himself in the lead, which most people wouldn't have expected, I don't think. So that was extremely impressive from the Greek player. Going through some of the stats very briefly for the set. So obviously the 7 aces you can see, because 3 of those even in that first game. What's quite important here is first serve points won. So he can see here 85% for Djokovic. But the second serve is something that Djokovic has to do here. He normally employs a slice serve a lot of the time on other surfaces. on the quicker surfaces because it skids off the surface and gives him more value for that slice serve. His second serve here, he had to go with the kick serve because it's the clay. And that's why he struggled at times. And Tsitsipas returned really well for me in the first 2 sets. His returning, which is something that I think hasn't been the best part of his game, or one of the best parts of his game for the last couple of years. This tournament was very good, I thought, in comparison. He returned extremely well against Daniel Medvedev, very deep on a lot of the returns, making sure that he was making Medvedev work for them. It wasn't just straight at him and hard and clipping the service lines. It was going near to the baseline. It was changing direction on the returns, making the server really work hard, so that that 1+ shot on the serve for the returner was a defensive shot rather than an attacking shot, or even a shot in neutral. So that was what was extremely impressive from my point of view. And if we go from first return points one, so you can see here, so 15% struggling on the first serve from Djokovic, but 67% of second return points one. Now, if you compare that to Djokovic, who is known as known as the best returner of all time, 28% of Stefanos Tsitsipas' serves on the second serve, he only won 28% of them, 38% on the first return, which is impressive. So he actually won more on the first serve, but the second serve, 28%. So shows how well Tsitsipas returned, especially on the second serve, which is something that you have to do against Djokovic. You have to make him pay, and really, as soon as you get a chance, because the first serve has now become a weapon from Djokovic, the second serve, you have to pounce on it. And that's what Stefanos Tsitsipas was trying to do in that first set. In terms of winners and unforced errors, 15-12 for Djokovic, 18-10 for Stefanos Tsitsipas. So quite impressive. And the one thing that I alluded to in the preview is that he has to come to the net. And he did. 6 times in that set, and every point he won, which was extremely impressive. And that, to me, was a trend that he needs to continue. Now, when we get into set 2, and Djokovic's level, I think, dropped here. He had a bit of a hangover, as I said, and I felt he looked out of breath. He looked like he just was a little bit out of it, really, and up against it. Tsitsipas utilized this play that definitely transpired in a lot of the points, which was to go to the Djokovic forehand. Now, for his first serves, Tsitsipas, for the most part, was aiming at the forehand, especially on the juice side, and not just necessarily to find the angle and go for aces. It was more just, I think, Djokovic's forehand return has a better chance of breaking down than his backhand in terms of the depth on the return and the speed it came back. And it worked for the most part in those first 2 sets. Similarly, in the rallies, he targeted the forehand as well. The backhand, which is so solid, and some people call it his shield, Djokovic's shield, because it's just so incredibly good defensively, and the depth he gets on that is extremely good. It's very penetrating as a backhand. The forehand side, though, at times can break down, as we saw against Nadal in the first set, and Tsitsipas, I think, took note of that. And his forehand is huge, Stefanos Tsitsipas, when he hits it cleanly, and he was hitting it cleanly pretty much from ball one. And what he would try and get Djokovic to do is engage in forehand cross-court exchanges. And what that meant is that Tsitsipas, having a bigger forehand, was able to dictate from the baseline on that forehand and then find angles, especially with the heavy topspin forehand he has, to kick off the surface at angles where Djokovic was getting pulled off court. So either it was an extremely hard shot for Djokovic to get back or a winner, or an unreturnable shot. And that then set up points where Djokovic would have to be so far out that even someone like Djokovic, who is an incredible mover, opened up a lot of the court and then opened up the forehand down the line, which he could just place into the open corner and open space of the clay court. So that was what was extremely impressive from Tsitsipas. I think he definitely realized that this is a game plan I can utilize, and it did work for the most part. So we'll go over the second sets. That's very briefly as well. So first serve points one. Now you can see here improved here 87%, which is really impressive. You can see here 57% and 50%. So serve relatively dominant from both in terms of first serve and second serve points one. But the biggest thing is that Stefanos Tsitsipas had a couple of big games, right, where he then managed to break, and that's what the difference was. So if you look at first return points one, this is impressive. 43% on the first serve and 38% on the second serve. So you might say that's a bit weird because of the 38%, but 43% on the first return is really good from Stefanos TSITSIPAS. And that, to me, again, shows that he was trying to be proactive on the return. You have to be against Novak Djokovic because he makes you work so hard on your own service games. You cannot let him have it easy on the return games. Sorry, on his own service games, because otherwise it's just a nightmare. Because say you end up serving a long service game, if he gets through his service game quickly, the next thing you know, you're under pressure straight away, and you have to serve again pretty much instantly, and you're thinking, I've just got through an absolute marathon of a game. I do not want to have to do this again. I need a break. I need to put some pressure and build some momentum back into my side of the court. In terms of winners as well, 9 for Tsitsipas and only 2 unforced errors. And this is what is extremely important and impressive. So in that set, I think the backhand was extremely solid in the forehand as well. He just wasn't missing, and he was really playing a lot of solid tennis. For Djokovic, obviously you can tell the level dropped. 6 winners and 10 unforced errors as well. And then net points, not as impressive since Tsitsipas only came to net 4 times and won half of the points. Djokovic, 60% for him. But it didn't matter because he played overall the better tennis, Stefanos TSITSIPAS, and that's why he ended up getting the 2 breaks and winning that set and going 2 sets to love up. Now, in terms of the third set, I think what's impressive for me was how Djokovic adapted. And before we get into the stats, I think a interesting tactic that he then employed was not going cross court to the Tsitsipas forehand and really trying his best to find the backhand of Tsitsipas. And what that meant is it wasn't just, okay, every shot when it hits the backhand, it was trying to set it up so that, you know what, I'm mixing it up, and also I'm making Tsitsipas have to move, not get comfortable in the rallies, and I'm going to impose. And Djokovic went from, I'm going to play a functional forehand, making sure that it's got good topspin on it, relatively good depth, and maybe a bit more conservative on that side, to what I guess we would be used to seeing the Djokovic play forehands like that maybe 3-4 years ago, to the Djokovic of now and the Australian Open, where he tries to use the forehand to dictate. And what that meant is hitting slightly quicker through the air, so slightly flatter, still with big topspin on the ball, but not as much as the previous sets, but also mixing it up and utilizing the forehand on the line more, making Tsitsipas hit more backhands. And what that meant is that Tsitsipas's errors started to go up. And it's not just because, oh, you're hitting to his backhand, but it's the way he set up. He might go to the forehand first, and then as soon as Tsitsipas will go cross court with the forehand, Djokovic would be setting himself up to go down the line straight away. And Tsitsipas, the amount of ground he has to cover to then get around there, and then also hit the backhand at times, he would try and utilize the backhand slice defensively. That slice from Tsitsipas is almost non-existent. So he made a lot of unforced errors on the backhand side trying to slice defensively. And Djokovic then figured out, okay, this is the game plan I need to employ. I need to try and get him in that corner, as a lot of people try to do with Nadal at times, so that he cannot run around the backhand. I make him hit that backhand cross court or down the line, and I make him take risks. And that's exactly what ended up happening. And if we go through the set as well, so 2 aces obviously for Tsitsipas, none for Djokovic, but 2 double faults on 1, again, not too telling. But what's telling here, because the first serve potential is pretty similar, first serve points 1 and second serve points 1. Look how dominant Djokovic was behind the serve. 71% of first serve points 1 in set 3 and 73% on the second serve. For Tsitsipas, 65, which is actually is okay. 38% is okay. Well, you think, oh, well, it's not great, but to be honest with you, in a lot of matches, people do have those type of stats, but this is what stands out, is how well Djokovic played on the 1+ shot and then set up the rallies. And it's a lot of people say, you know what, it's not just about attack and defense, it's about pressure, about the transitional phase, that neutral phase, and how you play in the neutral phases of points. And I think Djokovic is the best at playing that neutral phase, where he has so much depth on the ground strokes. He may not be hitting it extremely hard or hitting through the ball as much as if it was an attacking shot, but it's got that depth on it and direction that for some people it almost is an attacking shot, because it may not come across an attacking shot, but you have to defend. because you can't get into a good enough position movement-wise to then go back with your own neutral or, I guess, pressurized shot, I guess is the right word for it, or attacking shots. You end up playing a defensive stroke. And I think that's something that Djokovic clearly has figured out to a T, and something that he is the master of doing. And he continued to do that throughout that set, stepping in, really just grinding away at Tsitsipas. And the returning, I think, from set 3 onwards from Djokovic started getting better and better and better. And we can have a look here, because first return points, 29% for Tsitsipas, are dropping, and 18% on the second serve. Look at this, starting to rise here. 35% for Djokovic, 46% for the second serve returns, which is impressive. And then look at this, 11 winners and only 4 unforced errors. So Djokovic playing a lot more solid in the points, but playing with a lot better tennis IQ and really trying to execute a game plan and executing it very, very well. For Tsitsipas, 17 winners and 11 unforced errors. So you're thinking there, okay, well, it's a bit more of a tighter set, between the two. Okay, he wins it 6-3 on a break, and you're thinking, well, that's fine. That happens. You're expecting it for one of the GOATs. But then set 4 comes about, and the pattern of play just continues in Djokovic's favor. The first serve becomes more dominant, his returning becomes more dominant, and then you think to yourself, well, how is Tsitsipas going to win in this set? And how is he going to survive is the question, because as soon as that happens, you need to raise your game with him, and he didn't. Was the issue. So first serve percentage 74% for Djokovic and 67% for Tsitsipas. Now, a lot of these first serves, by the way, from Djokovic were only going at 130, 140 kilometers per hour, by the way, but they were huge kick serves. On the first serve, some of them were. So yes, on the second serve for the most part, but some of them were first serves that he was just trying to hit into corners, and Tsitsipas was not able to make it. It just meant that he could get more first serves in, and Tsitsipas wasn't making him pay on them. So it was an interesting one, and you wouldn't normally see Djokovic do that, but he utilized it and it worked at times, and it was almost like a surprise tactic, I guess. First serve points won. This is impressive. Again, look how big this is. 86%. He only lost 2 points behind his first serve and only 1 behind the second serve, Novak Djokovic. For Tsitsipas, not as impressive, 65% and 30%, and that makes a huge difference. Of course it does, and it makes really poor reading for Stefanos TSITSIPAS. Winners and unforced errors slightly more than Tsitsipas Djokovic at 7, but it shows how aggressively he was trying to play. 14 winners compared to 7 from Tsitsipas, and he clearly had got more into his groove and knew, I have got a hold of this game. I've taken it by the scruff of the neck, and I'm going to go forward now and win it. And this is where the difference comes as well. Stefanos Tsitsipas coming to the net again, but either not executing it well at the net or Djokovic passing really well, and his anticipation was just through the roof at times. So only winning 1 out of 5 net points, and that would have deterred him for the rest of that set and also in the final set. So that is a huge difference. Now we're just going to touch upon set 5 very briefly. So obviously, set 5, we know what happened there. Djokovic again just being extremely dominant behind it. 85% first serve points won, 74% first serve percentage. Tsitsipas's first serve percentage dropped dramatically to 52%. First serve points won 64%. Second serve 50%. So not terrible, but the break points on the big points, there were a couple of shanked backhands because Djokovic was putting a lot more pressure on the backhand. So yes, he did hit a few winners down the line in that 4th and 5th set, but for the most part, the backhands were going long when he was trying to take that risk or shanking them long. And that obviously makes a huge difference. In terms of winners and unforced errors, here we go. We've got a flip here. The first set that you can see from Tsitsipas where the unforced errors are a lot larger than the winners and larger in general. So 16 unforced errors compared to 10 winners. And then for Djokovic, 10 winners and 8 unforced errors. So just very solid from the Serb. And then if we look at service points won and return points won. Return points won. Tsitsipas's return became almost non-existent. The first serve return, he was just trying to survive, get it into court. Second serve, he wasn't really capitalizing on the second serve. That made a huge difference. It really did. I think he's returning something that he needs to be extremely solid for him to win, or to win against Djokovic. Unfortunately, just fell to the wayside, and that didn't help. And if we look at the overall match statistics, so if we have a look here, you can see that kind of reflects in the overall match as well. So first serve percentage slightly better, obviously, for Novak, and then first serve points, second serve points won. He's winning on those fronts, and even the return points, despite Tsitsipas winning 2 sets, you can see the difference there, and it makes a huge difference. It really does. Win his unforced errors as well. And I think the reason why I didn't want to look at it from just the match point of view is because I think set by set, we had such a merry-go-round of a match that I think it would be better to do it set by set and really set the scene. And Tsitsipas had he had opportunities, I think, and his level definitely dropped in those last three sets for sure. I think he'll be slightly disappointed with how it dropped, especially in that fifth set. I think he needs to give it his all, and there was one game, I think it was at 2-1 where he was leading, and sorry, it was at 1-1 actually even, and he was serving 2 lead in the set, and he saved I think 2 or 3 break points. And then Djokovic just kept on knocking the door, and he just eventually succumbed to it and some of the points he had to play were inspired, and Djokovic was getting everything back. I'm not joking. They call him Mr. Elastic for a reason. His retrieval abilities are incredible, and the depth as well. There was one shot he played where Tsitsipas basically clipped the line, and Djokovic had no time to move. It was basically by his feet, and he managed to just like scoop a two-handed backhand back over the net. And it wasn't just back over the net. He managed to get it within like a foot of the baseline, and then that's it. You're back to neutral. It's crazy. After he was in an incredibly defensive position, you thought there's no way he can win this point. So Djokovic does stuff that people just can only dream of, to be honest with you, in certain instances. And he's a big game and big match player. And when it came to the crucial points, for the most part, he just played them better composure, and he didn't get deterred too much when he lost a big opportunity. He would just say, I'm going to knock on the door again. I'm going to come again. And that's exactly what he did. And Tsitsipas, on the other hand, look, he'll take definitely something from this. I think he got a bit complacent after going 2 sets to love up. He probably thought, okay, the momentum's with me. Let's do this. I can get through this. And his level definitely dropped. And Djokovic got a sniff of it. And as soon as he sniffed Tsitsipas's level dropping slightly, his level rose to the roof. And then that was it. And he rekindled some of that form he had against Rafa Nadal. And that was really curtains from there. I did say that he'd have to win in straight sets whilst I was doing the live stream. Because I just thought Tsitsipas has to be clinical and take it now. If he doesn't, Djokovic is a master of winning 5-set matches or 4-set matches even, like he showed against Rafa Nadal. So a really intriguing final, has to be said. The Greek player definitely had chance. I think, as I said, he'll be disappointed about that 3rd, 4th, and 5th set. Djokovic, though, played some inspired tennis. For sure, the backhand was just extremely solid. Backhand cross-court to the backhand of Tsitsipas. Worked really well from set 3 onwards. The drop shot as well, which I forgot to mention. And look, the drop shot has become a weapon, and it's an extremely good weapon to utilize at the French. And the reason why is because nowadays you don't have so many people standing however many feet behind the baseline in the rallies, because people can utilize good drop shots nowadays. And it just means that you have to be more on your toes, and Tsitsipas maybe has to stand slightly closer to the baseline as he would like in the rallies. For the most part, he did actually manage to get close to some of them, but there were just some from Djokovic which were too good. Too good. Just unbelievable disguise, very good playing at the right point in the rally, and it just meant that was an extra thing for Tsitsipas to have to think about. And sometimes it might have meant actually that he was almost too close or too far forward, and then that's why he looked like he was scrambling in some of the rallies, because he knew that the drop shot could come at any given point, and that definitely would have been playing on his mind. So an interesting development as well from Djokovic, and something that he can utilize really well, especially on the grass as well. It wasn't a shot that he utilized quite a lot, but it just helps him shorten the points. And I think in the first 2 sets, you could see maybe there was a bit of tired energy about him because of the Nadal high and the mental fatigue maybe brought by that. And he tried to shorten the points at times, but then as soon as the match wore on, he started to win more and more of the exchanges that went longer and longer. And that was just because of the rejuvenation we saw, not just in his play, but in his psyche and mentality as well, going forward from the 3rd set onwards. Whereas Tsitsipas, I think, it was actually pretty good, I thought, mentally in terms of showing his outward emotions, but for me, his level dropped slightly, and at one point, you could see he just went almost ultra attacking because he knew like Djokovic is getting everything back and the game plan I'm utilizing is not working. And he just tried to hit him off the court. And that can work. We've seen it against Djokovic and Nadal, but you just have to be so good at doing it. And you need to be so consistent at doing it for a whole set. And unfortunately, Tsitsipas just wasn't able to find that set in the third, fourth, or fifth set, unfortunately. And that would have been an incredible feat for him. Right. I think that's what I want to discuss on this. I may also do a very brief discussion with or collab with another channel as well to discuss and get their thoughts on it. I will, of course, be covering Wimbledon as well, which is the third Grand Slam of the year. Apart from that, maybe doing some bits and bobs, but nothing confirmed. Thank you very much, guys, for tuning in. Please do remember to smash the like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Let me know what you thought as well of the match. Were you surprised? Were you not surprised? What do you think about Djokovic? Do you think he's now the GOAT of all time? Or do you think actually we have to wait until they all retire? Do you think there's different factors to factor in? And do you think Stefanos TSITSIPAS can win a Grand Slam? And if so, when do you think it will be? And will he be the first of the next gen to do so? Is the question that I have for you guys as well. Okay, thank you very much, guys, and I'll see you